Hey guys, Coach Liz here. I'm excited to talk with you about this topic. I think it is very, very important, and so many of my clients have needed this week. I actually wasn't going to teach about this yet, but because of how many people I've shared this with this week, I thought I better share it with everyone. Everyone needs this topic, and it actually goes along great with Dr. A's life book. Um, Element 3, we are still in, and it's talking in there about some really great things. But one of the things that it talks about is your present self versus your future self. I want you to ask yourself, in regards to your emotions, which I'm going to talk about today, how is your present self handling emotions? How do you handle being stressed, being tired, being bored, being lonely, being angry? Do you ever notice that you buffer those emotions? Do you eat when you're stressed or bored? Or do you watch Netflix or sleep, or maybe drugs or alcohol, or video games, or your phone scrolling is a big one. So think about that. How do I manage my emotions when I'm feeling that? That is a huge thing. And what would your future self look like? How would your future self, if you could create anything, how would your future self manage your emotions? What would you do instead of trying to cover up those emotions? I'm going to give you all the tools to make that possible today. One thing that I love that Dr. Anderson has often said is that most of the problems in the world could be fixed or prevented by emotional management. So in reverse, emotional mismanagement is the cause of most problems in the world. Think about that. If if people knew how to process anger, how much less rioting, political dispute, or trouble in the political area, um, abuse, so many fighting, all of those things is because of emotional mismanagement. What about addiction, drug addiction, alcohol, pain pills, food, right? There's pornography. That is all emotional mismanagement, not knowing how to process those emotions. Um, so I think, and so many others, but that gives you an idea of really what this means. So often we get these emotions and they're uncomfortable, especially in our day when everything's so fast paced and at our fingertips. It's very rare that we have to be bored, right? We have so many things that can cover up these uncomfortable emotions, like when we're stressed. What do? Do you eat chocolate? I know I used to always crave chocolate when I was stressed. I have 6 young kids. Dinner time, especially when they were all tired and cranky and hungry and had to be at different places trying to get dinner fixed, I could just feel my stress rising. And the first thing that my brain would say is, you need chocolate. That's going to fix it. So I would go to the pantry, take some handfuls of chocolate chip, and yes, for like a minute, it felt good, right? But that didn't fix the stress. It didn't fix the crying kids. It didn't fix how I managed my emotions toward them. It didn't fix anything. And so once I learned how to process these emotions and manage them and then change how I dealt with them, that made a huge difference. Now, when I feel that stress rising, which it still happens, like it doesn't go away, it's just you're processing it different. Now I go fill up a big glass of water. I stand over my sink and I just chug a big glass of water. It actually helps me get a few breaths in, like take a pause, fills up my tummy so I'm not hungry. And it just has helped me so much to manage that much better. But before we can do that, we have to learn how to process them. So we all have emotions, right? We all feel it somewhere in our body. And those emotions are so important because our brain is thinking so many thoughts. So often we don't even recognize a thought that we're having because we just think it's who we are. It just passes through us like a bit of information. It's not who we are. It doesn't define us. It's not even our own. It's just passing through. Like, you should eat the chocolate, right? That's not like me at all. It's just like a suggestion. But so often you don't even recognize that that's just a thought. You think that's who you are, and pretty soon it's causing some emotions, and that's uncomfortable. Have you ever been to a doctor's office and looked around and seen anyone just sitting? Everyone's on their phone scrolling, right? Covering up those emotions of boredom because we have a hard time like having any dead space in our life of just thinking. And so that is one good example that's very common. And often there are ways to buffer that could be unhealthy that you think that might be healthy. For example, exercise. That's a good example. A lot of people, when they're stressed, go and exercise, and that's a great way to manage stress, right? But if you're doing it without processing your emotion, you're just covering that stress up. what if you could process through that emotion? And we're going to go through those steps and really be able to like listen to that and then go exercise. That's totally different. So let me walk you through the steps. And I'm actually going to put a recording, a video recording that walks you through this. It's so good. I've watched it like 20 times at least. Watch it over and over and over, because even if you learn it, it's different. Like you have to start putting into practice, and it takes a lot of time and practice to be able to master that. So watch this video as many times as you need. There's also a handout that you can print off to remind yourself all of the steps. So make sure you print that off. But I actually have this emotion wheel that I keep right here on my bulletin board. And I love that it has like the core emotions of anger, fear, disgust, sad, happy, surprise. So if I'm feeling an emotion, I can actually go and say, okay, what am I feeling? Maybe I'm feeling like a little angry, right? I feel angry, but that's just such a vague word. And so on the emotion wheel, you can actually find like the exact emotion that goes with that. Like maybe I'm feeling like a little bit, I don't know, maybe threatened. And then like deeper into that would be jealousy. Maybe I'm feeling a little jealous, but it's coming out like anger is the first thing that comes to mind. So the emotion wheel can really help you dive in to find like the exact emotion, like pinpoint that emotion that you're feeling. So I love that. You can actually just Google emotion wheel, print one off for yourself if you want, but that's really helpful. I like to keep it on my fridge and actually even help my kids like recognize the emotions that they're feeling. Like that's very powerful for a child to learn. So here are the steps. Number one, it's important to name it. What are you feeling? What is that emotion? Right? So maybe you're just like bored or you're stressed, right? That's a big one. Okay, I'm stressed. Okay, and then locate it. Where do I feel this in my body? I for sure feel it here in my chest when I'm stressed. It's like feels like really heavy, like a pressing feeling. And I also feel it in my jaw. I clench my jaw when I'm really stressed. And I notice that. And so if you can use an ing word to describe it, describe what that feels, because it's usually that means it's an action. What is it doing? It's clenching, it's tightening, it's restricting, it's clenching, whatever it is. Use an ing word to describe how that's feeling, and then shift it. So one great way to shift it, like you need to feel movement where you're feeling this. So for me, if it's maybe stress, like just kind of a crazy sound that you make, like what would describe that feeling? Like if you're frustrated. So whatever sound goes with it, make a sound and then breathe. Take a few deep breaths. That really like touches any part of the where your emotion might be. And it actually calms you down. Like just that one breath that I just took, I could really feel like that pressure in my chest just go away. And so often, especially when we're feeling an emotion, we have like these shallow breaths that we're not getting oxygen down into our gut. So take some deep breaths, get some oxygen moving into your body. It physically actually relaxes you. So take some deep breaths, and that helps to shift it. And then listen to it. Sometimes just accepting that it's there. Yeah, I'm feeling a little stressed. I have a lot on my plate and I know I can do it. It's just feeling overwhelming right now. And ask yourself, what wants to be known because of this emotion? Maybe something wants to be changed, right? Like maybe my mind, my body is telling me that I am putting too much on my plate and I need to like change that. I can't handle that much. So ask yourself, what is this emotion telling me? Maybe it wants to be changed or shifted or listened to or heard, right? Maybe it wants to be mourned. So there's so many different things that these emotions are telling you. And once you can recognize what that emotion is telling you, number one, maybe you might be able to change that, like fix that problem if you feel that emotion often. And sometimes it's just that you recognize that it's there and it's okay. Like I can get through the day and I have this like tightening feeling in my chest, but I know it's stress and I know it's going to go away and it's okay. It's a little uncomfortable and I can work through that. And usually like especially if a craving comes with it, that's a good way to recognize an emotion. If you ask yourself, am I hungry or am I emotional? Often it's emotional. And so sometimes if you just if you know it's not time to eat, it's just actually an emotional craving. sometimes just shifting it, and that's when you might go exercise or might go take a hot bath, or like once you've already processed it, then go to do something for about 20 minutes to distract yourself. And a craving will usually go away in about 20 minutes, whether you feed it or not. So sometimes it just means sitting with the uncomfortable feeling and letting it pass, or just being okay that it's there and just know that it's there, recognize it, and you can still get through your day. Or it might be distracting yourself. Go sweep your porch or organize a drawer, and you'll be surprised how often that emotion will go away. So I hope that helps. That just is kind of a quick run through of how to process emotion and be more aware of how to self-soothe in a healthy way so that you can really process and handle those emotions and not have to buffer, not have to cover them up, which isn't helping anything. It's just adding layer on layer and not ever fixing that emotion. So I want you to practice this. Please, like I said, it might take hundreds of times, but this is worth practicing. This will change your life, not just your health, your relationships, your work, your finances. Everything is correlated with how we manage emotions. So I hope that you take this as a challenge. Go ahead and watch the video, print off the print off, and start practicing it. Watch that over and over and over. Start recognizing emotions. If you have someone else in your life that you can help them process emotion, I think that's very powerful. If you work on this with a spouse or a friend and you're feeling like maybe that anger or that stress, you could call them up and say, hey, I need to process some emotion. Sometimes just saying it out loud to someone else can be huge, but even if you do it internally or to yourself, that is a huge step in learning to not buffer. So this is golden. Please practice this. Please pass it along, share it. But this is something that can really help to overcome emotional eating, emotional mismanagement, and learning how to self-soothe to really be comfortable with yourself and your emotions and really create the outcome that you want with your actions. So you guys have a great week. It's been fun chatting with you.